Hello and welcome back. This is part 2 of my week of trying to be a full-time writer. So let's go back to where I was on Friday, where I had gotten up to 38,000 words in the book, so that was a triumph, but I was a little bit worried about how much they were. So we're going to get into some of my concerns and then proceed with the rest of the week. So on one hand, I was quite happy that I'd actually done so much and I hadn't realized how much I already had in this book. On the other hand, when I was going through this stuff, I thought I would go through it and I remember really liking it and I thought I would continue to like it, and I already see a couple of issues. One is that I think we definitely need some more time with Aubrey before this happens, because at this point we don't really know who he is and what he wants, and it feels a bit like, so what? So I think I do need to add a couple of chapters on for him towards the beginning. I'm also worried that at this point it's starting to change characters too frequently, and I don't know if we're still feeling forward momentum, if we still feel connected to the characters, or I don't know if maybe it's just because I wrote it in this way where I did Perry at once and then I looked at the others and now I'm putting it together and I've sort of forgotten where we were with Perry. So it's going to be interesting to see how I feel about it when I read through it. The third problem is that when I initially wrote this book, I had very short chapters. They were sort of like mini chapters grouped into larger chapters. So we'd have, the first one was called The International Exhibition, and then there was 1, 2, 3 under that, and they were these mini chaplets, if you like. So they were sort of 1,000, maybe 15,000, 1,000 to 1,500 words each. And that was the way the book worked, to sort of keep things moving very quickly. And in this rewrite, the chapters towards the beginning of the book, because I've been fleshing them out, they've averaged around 3,000 words each. And then we get into this selection of chapters and suddenly they're short again. So we have one with Ince, which is sort of just him watching Perry, which is maybe 500 words, and then we've got a few which are sort of 1,000 words each. And in theory, I don't mind having shorter chapters at certain parts of the book because I think it's helpful for building momentum and just building the pace, especially when you're switching between different points of view for the same series of events. However, I do feel like the transition might be a bit sudden because we've gone straight from having these 3,000 word chapters to having a really small one to a bunch of really small ones. Having said all of that, I don't have the distance to look at this as an editor at the moment. I don't think it's a valuable use of my time and energy to fix it. The other thing is, I'm where I was back on the 30th of December or whenever it was when I finished my week of trying to write this book in a week. So it's been almost 2 months and I haven't really I've made progress. I do have an extra 10,000 words. I've written and rewritten parts of this beginning many times, but in terms of progression through the story, I haven't gotten any further in the last 2 months. So I think it's time to move forward. So now that I've gotten this first chunk of the book done, what I want to do today is basically start mapping out the next part of the book. And in the original draft, it was the first half of the book that was causing me problems. The first 25%, so the setup, I didn't feel like there was enough for us to really get to know and become invested in the characters before the plot started. And then the second 25%, which is where I am now, I was struggling with having sort of 2 parallel storylines, and I felt like I was jumping back and forth between characters too often and had scenes that felt episodic rather than making progress and carrying forward momentum. So I already have quite a few things that I know I want to happen in this section. So today I want to do some brainstorming, some outlining to try and figure out how to make it work. And then maybe this afternoon I'll do some more writing, though I'm also very behind on YouTube. At the time of recording this, I usually upload on a Saturday morning my time, and I've missed the last 2 Saturdays. So since this is my last weekday off, I might try doing some videos this afternoon as well, because I have some different rambly things I want to discuss that have been in my head for a while, but I just haven't made the time to sit down and record them. So this should be interesting. To give you some context for what's happening in this part of the book, so the orb has just gone missing. Perry stole it. Aubrey bumped into her, it fell out of her bag, someone stole it from her, and now it's made its way into the hands of the antagonist. He originally wanted it sort of as revenge on Rain, who's, ruler of the town, whose title I need to confirm. And also because something happened to the woman that he loved back in the war, and he thinks that having the MacGuffin will fix it. And in the process of him getting the MacGuffin, he sort of forms an alliance. It's so hard trying to keep this vague, but he forms an alliance with another character who sort of pushes him to have a much bigger plan. So rather than just focusing on himself and trying to fix what went wrong in his own life, the other character basically pushes him, going, look, you've got this power now, let's restore the world to what it once was and bring power back to mages once more. So he gets the orb, and then his objective increases from fix what's wrong with my life to fix the world, and he wants to stage a revolution. So one of the plot threads is him preparing for the revolution, so he's recruiting mages, maybe some training, because we could only have limited stuff from his point of view, so it's mainly going to be around the recruitment, the planning the uprising, up to the midpoint, which is when they stage a coup. The other plot that's happening is the search for the MacGuffin, because Aubrey and Perry both need to find this object that they lost. So we've got sort of revolution and search for the MacGuffin, and about halfway through this section, so let's say 37.5%, that is when Aubrey and Perry discover that the revolution's taking place, and they sort of go, oh, we've got to stop this as well. So there are like these two parallel things that get a little bit tangled, and I need to figure out how to do them. So this should be fun. So I've been looking at this for about 20 minutes, and I don't know if I'm going to pull this book off, to be completely honest. It's so much more complicated trying to do a multiple point of view book than it is doing a single point of view. Like, a single point of view is simple. You have one character and you're just following them through the story, and naturally, like, as long as that character's making progress, the story's making progress, things are moving forward, they, in theory, should be evolving as you watch them. Whereas when you've got, like, 5 different point of view characters, which I have, then, yeah, it's hard. It's, like, on one hand, I've got lists, I've got arcs for all of them, and figuring out how to incorporate them, but then there's also, like, the events that are happening, and I'm struggling to focus on both. So what I was just doing was looking through the list of scenes I already had, and it looks pretty good. I do think, hang on, where's my tab? I have too many tabs. We have, yeah, the orb goes missing. Aubrey and Perry start searching for it. Yeah, basically they start searching for it, they split up, and they happen to bump into each other in the same place, which coincidentally where Jared's having his revolutionary meeting. And then after that, they've sort of got these parallel, actually no. See, this is the good thing about talking it through, you realise what doesn't work. So I was going to say, and then after that, they've got these parallel searching for the orb and trying to stop the revolution plots at the same time. But that doesn't really work because Aubrey, yeah, okay, so up to the point of the revolutionary speech, I think we're okay, but then from the revolutionary speech to the coup, I think it's a little bit difficult. You see, I can't do more than one thing at once. I focus on one thing and I'm doing that, and now trying to get my characters, like, I don't know how they can be both focused on how do we bring down a revolution and how do we keep searching for the orb. Anyway, I've got a few scenes before that, so I can think about that later. But anyway, the reason I turned the camera back on is because I basically have a list of things I want to show for each of the different arcs, and this was really, like, easy for Team Villain because there aren't many chapters from their point of view. So Aubrey and Perry are the main point of view characters. They are the ones who are, like, experiencing most of the story, whereas the villains or antagonists, we sort of just check in with them at key moments. So Madeira, for instance, she has like 5 chapters from her point of view. There were like 2 from the last version of the draft. I rewrote the earlier chapter from her point of view, and I think it would make sense for there to be a point of view chapter for her around the coup and also around the final battle, because her arc is all about, you know, her anger at knowing that she is powerful but it's not recognized, and how can she, like, basically how can she impose her power on the world. So we've got the angst at the beginning, we've got the dream of being powerful by being swept up in the revolution. At the coup, there is a moment when, like, she and Perry have a disagreement, and Madeira sort of flips on her, because before then Perry wasn't involved in the coup at all, and Madeira sort of thought, oh, I can make you one of us, you can join our cause, and Perry doesn't want to. So this causes a rift between them, and because this is a significant moment for Madeira, I think it would be good to have a chapter from her point of view, and then the battle at the end, it makes sense to have a chapter from her point of view. So we've only got these 5 moments, but those 5 moments are enough to illustrate her arc. Same thing with Ince. His setup, his pickpocket gets recruited by Jared and steals the orb and delivers it to the antagonist. And then he's sort of recruited to be Jared's sidekick for the revolution. And in the revolution, like, his initial thoughts are that, you know, mages are in such a weakened state, I'm doing a good thing, I'm returning them to their rightful status, to having second thoughts when he sees the cost, to, like, switching sides in the battle. So again, we can get this complete arc with only a couple of chapters. So for those characters, like, all I need to do is think of one chapter for each of those beats, or one scene for each of those beats, where we can see them experience those beats. And because there are these core events in the story which involve everyone, so the orb going missing, the coup, and the final battle, I know where those things fall in the scope of those big events. So slotting those in should be fairly easy. When I come back to Perry and Aubrey though, because they're carrying the rest of the story, their stuff starts to feel much more logistical in comparison, like they're just getting everyone from A to B so we can experience these big moments. So I was also thinking about their arcs, which are predominantly Perry and Aubrey's relationship, which goes from annoyance, frustration, dislike to being close. Perry's, which is going from, you know, believing in Daramon and science and thinking magic is useless, to sort of seeing the value of magic, to seeing the cost of magic, to wishing there was a better way that both of the worlds could exist in harmony. And then there's Aubrey's arc, which needs work, because originally I'd planned he was going to go from, like, being really suspicious of everyone else to being able to trust Perry, but it doesn't seem to fit with everything. But anyway, so in my planning, when I was just going through the list of scenes, it all seemed to work. It felt like, yeah, these are the key events, this is what needs to happen, I don't think there needs to be anything else in there. And then I looked at this and I'm not sure when these little bits of character development happen, and, like, it's really exhausting. My brain is so tired just trying to puzzle this out. So I don't know if this is something I can do now, or if this is something where I just try writing the book, and then when I'm going through and revising it, that's when I stick each of these things in. So if we take Perry and Aubrey's relationship, for instance, at the beginning there's supposed to be this instant dislike. She thinks he's annoying and entitled, he thinks she's arrogant and a know-it-all. Then there are moments of respect when they begin to bond. So she respects his magic abilities. There's a moment where she covers for him and she sort of gets caught spying and lets him get away. Then there are moments of betrayal, so he thinks she's been hiding something from him the entire time. She accidentally unlocks all these hidden memories he didn't know he had, and this builds to the final moment where they bond in the battle. Now, obviously, bonding in the battle isn't going to be as significant unless all of this stuff happens first. So I need to make sure all of this stuff happens first. And the question now is, do I try and work it in now, or do I just write it and then in revising go back and go, okay, how can I pump up the dislike here? How can I make this, you know, moment of respect or camaraderie more impactful? I'm not sure about the best way to approach this. I'd be really curious about how you approach this sort of stuff, whether you try to, like, whether it's a matter of planning it really well and knowing how everything slots together, or whether it's, you know, sort of starting with this skeleton draft and then you build on it with all of these layers and things you wanted to incorporate. I have a feeling my approach is going to be the second one. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work, because in theory, that's what I should be doing with the last draft. I should be taking the 2019 draft and, like, layering all of this stuff onto it. And the reason I'm not is because I don't think the 2019 draft worked. I think it needed to be rewritten. I think when we get to the end of my 2021 draft and do, like, a comparison, it'll be at least 50% of it will be completely new. But then what happens at the end of 2021, when I look at it again and go, oh, I don't think I can fix this by layering on what's there, I think it needs to be thrown out again. Yeah, it's a good challenge. I like the puzzle, but it's a little frustrating being in this position where I just don't know if I'm going to solve it, and yeah, I don't know what the solution is. So, because I don't know what the solution is, it's time to go to the gym. So, I was at the gym and I had an epiphany, and I'm not sure how I feel about it. I think I might need to cut Aubrey from this book. So, here's my second point of view character. And the reason for this is I was just thinking, how much easier would the book be if there was just one protagonist and then I had other points of view, like sort of as garnish, as seasoning, which was how I always planned for the villain squad to be represented in the book. And it would be so much easier. Like, I'd have one character who's driving the story forward, all of the chapters would be from her point of view, there wouldn't be any of this jumping from one to the other and having parallel things going and losing momentum and forgetting who people are and losing your connection with them. And to be honest, like, a lot of Aubrey's stuff could be cut without being detrimental to the story. I mean, he comes to Daramon from outside Daramon and sort of brings another character along with him who is his handler, who gives him his mission, but like, neither of them really have any bearing on the orb going missing, getting stolen, the magical uprising, the final battle. You know, they're both there. Like, Aubrey bumps into Perry and that's how she loses the orb, because it gets knocked out of her bag, but it doesn't need to be him. Someone else could do it. The only potential difficult thing is in the battle scene, there's like a moment where he pulls her to safety, and just because of the architecture of the scene, and I mean the literal architecture, like the way the dungeon's structured and what happens, it's basically on fire and starts falling apart by the end of it. Like, someone does need to be there to fulfill that role, and I don't know who else it would be. But that's the only moment when he's necessary, which is really bad. Like, bad job, Jackie. That's a very poorly designed character. So, removing Aubrey might solve my problems. I don't want to do it because, like, I don't want to do it because I feel like he can be saved. I feel like the reason he is easy to take out now is just because I haven't done my job well enough, and if I do my job better, then he will be more integral to the story. And by my job, I mean my job as the author. So I feel like he can be salvaged. I just need to get to work. But, like, critically, I do think if I removed him, it would solve a lot of my problems. I'm not going to do it today. I'm not that committed. I'm not committed at all to this course of action, to be completely honest. I think I'm just going to, like, start working through the next section and keep it in the back of my mind. Maybe when I'm done, I'll do a second version of the book without him, which seems to be the way this book is going. Like, I have multiple versions of everything. It's ridiculous. But maybe that's the process this book needs to get done. Like, I don't want to get, like, angry at my brain. Like, why did you have this idea? Why are you making things more difficult for me? Because, like, my brain's doing its job. Like, that's what it's meant to do. It's meant to marinate things and spit out ideas, but can't we just find a way to fix what I already have as opposed to having to pull it all apart again? So from here, I think I'm going to work on the next section. In fact, I might just chill for a bit. This is a big revelation. Yeah, I think I might watch some YouTube and then get into the next part of the book. The nice thing about this next part of the book is, even though, like, a lot of the stuff is new, I already know a lot of snippets that I can take from the last draft. So, like, for instance, there are sort of two scenes with Aubrey and Artemis, who's his handler, and I think I can, like, the second one's going to be completely removed, but I think I can incorporate some description and some of the dynamic from that one to the one we're keeping, so, which will make it much better. Similarly, there was this, like, two scenes with Perry and Aubrey where they were, like, strategizing for how to get the orb back and how to find it, and They really slow things down, they're not necessary. But we've got another scene where they're going to start like following page boys because the person who stole it was a boy in a page boy uniform. And I think we can have a lot of that deduction there. So I think the next couple of chapters at least are going to be not writing from scratch, but a lot of rewriting and cobbling together paragraphs and bits of dialogue from different places. So that should be fun. It's always a little bit easier when you've got something to start with, especially when you've had a revelation that might mean you have to throw out this book you've had in your head for 15 years. But I'm not bitter. There's some... so exciting. But I can't see. There we go. So this has been a very dark year. Like literally, I think we've had maybe 5 or 6 days with actual sunlight since the new year started. And yesterday was one of them. Like yesterday afternoon the sun came out for a bit, so I'm really excited to have woken up and the sky's blue and the sun's shining, and Drew and I are actually going on a day trip to Narva today, which is a city on the border with Russia, and we haven't been there before. Drew's boss actually said since we're probably not going to be here for that much longer, we should go and see it, and bought us train tickets, which was really nice. So taking a day off riding today, but I'll be getting some footage when I'm out there. Hello, it's me again, and now I'm in real time. So it's the afternoon of Sunday the 28th of February, which means it's the end of my week of attempting to be a full-time writer. I didn't end up doing any writing yesterday. Obviously, we were on our day trip to Narva, and on the train I was focusing on YouTube and video editing rather than writing because I'm a bit behind in my authortube duties. But I was mulling over the book in the back of my head, and what's interesting, as I was editing this video you're watching, and I was watching my struggle on Friday and my realization that I might need to cut Aubrey from the book, I realized it was probably the right decision, and I didn't really want to, but I thought the book would work better for it. And if I look for a comparison book, the best one is probably A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. Plots, not similar at all, but sort of tone and style, like these books would be closest to those. And in the first book, the two main point of view characters are Kel and Lila. But if you look at it objectively, the story is Kel's story. He's the one who brings the mysterious object that causes all of the problems into his world. It's his responsibility to get rid of it. He bumps into Lila and chaos ensues, but she's sort of just tagging along for the ride. She doesn't actually have any personal stakes in this story other than like when she finds herself in battle, she needs to survive. But she doesn't have any vested interest in saving Kel's world or, returning the magical stone back to where it needs to be. She's along for the ride, really. And with that in mind, you could probably rewrite that book without Lila, because it's not her story. She's along for the ride. So earlier today, I was trying to map out my book again, just with Perry's point of view. And I still think it could work, but I'm not sure how, because what happened when I removed Aubrey is, and this is the same thing that would happen with A Darker Shade of Magic, you could remove Lila, but Kel would be on his own for most of the plot. There would be no sounding board for him, no one for him to interact with. It would be him and his thoughts, and a lot of running and fighting when he ran into other people. And that's sort of what's happening with my book now. If Perry's on her own, so I need to rejig the bit where the orb gets stolen from her, which is fine. I can find another way for it to happen without Aubrey bumping into her so she drops it. But then from it being stolen to her discovering the revolution, it's sort of just a lot of thinking, like there's no one for... It would be like Sherlock Holmes without Watson. So you've got Sherlock Holmes, his sort of trying to unravel a mystery, trying to find a criminal or a clue, and it's all happening in his head. It would be very quiet without Watson to explain his thought processes to. And Aubrey has a similar role here, and I think in Darker Shade of Magic, Lila has a similar role. They are able to exposit through dialogue and through getting to know each other and through seeing how their backgrounds are different. So now that I've actually attempted trying to do the outline without Aubrey, I'm genuinely not sure what the best solution is. So I don't think I'll do any more writing today, which is why I thought I'd do the outro now rather than waiting until the very end of the day. But I am going to continue thinking about it because, yeah, I'm not sure what the best option is. I think it could work without Aubrey, but Perry would be on her own a lot, so I've got to find a way to make that more dynamic and interesting. Or if I keep Aubrey, I just, like I said on Friday, I need to do a better job as an author in making his role essential. So that's where I am. In terms of the week in general, it was really nice to have a week off work. I think I said this over Christmas when I attempted to write this book in a week, that generally when I take time off work, it's because I'm traveling somewhere, I'm going on holiday, and that isn't an option at the moment in Europe because of COVID. And generally, in the past, I would have just stockpiled my leave until I could go away again, but the company I work for has a policy where your leave from the previous year will expire by the end of Q1. So you're sort of forced to take time off, which I think is actually a good way of doing it because it's good for your mental health to have some breaks from work, and this year has definitely been a little bit stressful and taxing, so I did need the mental break. So it was nice to have a week off and not go anywhere and just focus on the writing. When it comes to how much I did, I'm going to go through my results in my spreadsheet as of this moment. If I do anything else this afternoon, I will add some text on the screen explaining what the official end of the week numbers are. So in the past week, on 6 of the days I spent time on my book. The activities I did were outlining, rewriting, rereading and thinking time, reviewing existing content, and actual writing. When I measure my time, I have the time of the session and then my productive time. So that's time that was actually spent on the activity as opposed to if I got distracted by YouTube or took a break. So productive time was 525 minutes, which is 8.75 hours. And that's actually a lot lower than I was expecting it would be, just because I did have the entire week off. And I thought, like I said at the beginning of the week, I wasn't planning to do 40 hours of writing and working on my book, but I thought I would spend more than the equivalent of one work day on my book. And one of the interesting things I discovered this week is that I do have a limited capacity for creativity each day. The longest day I did had 160 minutes of productive time, so that's 2 hours and 40 minutes. The shortest day was actually Friday, where I had my 20 minutes of outlining, then I had my revelation that I might need to cut Aubrey, and then I was depressed for the rest of the day and didn't actively work on the book. In the week, even though I didn't spend that long working on the book, I did get through 26,212 words. Now, obviously, those weren't all freshly written words. In fact, on Thursday, I went through the 7,900 words that I basically just copied from the last version of the book and pasted into this one and reviewed. But I did reread all of that. I was making notes on some of the problems that will need to be addressed. My best words per minute was 141.5 words, though that's not writing time. That was when I was reviewing that 7,900 words. My only pure writing session was only 19.6 words a minute, so you can see it was much slower going when I was writing from scratch. When it comes to the total time I've spent on this book this year, so this is 2 months now, it is 1,707 minutes, which is 28.45 hours. So that's also not a lot, though I can't say I'm surprised because I haven't been that disciplined with pushing through with this book this year. With the exception of when I did that week of working from the office a month ago, most weeks I will only do sessions on the weekend. So it's not surprising that that isn't that much time, and that's just been because work has been challenging. The number of words written is 50,793. Now, obviously, that is higher than the total word count in the book at the moment, which is 38,000 words. The reason for that is because there are a number of parts of this book that I have rewritten multiple times. So on Monday, the scene I was working on, it was the 4th time I'd written it. So because I'm counting words in individual sessions, that scene has been counted multiple times. And I think it's interesting to count words this way so you can see how much work you're putting in, even though the number of words in your document might not be changing. Like if I was comparing this book to what I wrote over the Christmas week, that was 29,000 words, now I'm up to 38,000 words. So that would mean I'd only done 9,000 words in the last 2 months, which is not true. I have put in much more work than that. All in all, I think this was a good week. It was a more productive week than most of the weeks I've had this year because of the aforementioned only looking at the book on the weekends. It was a little surprising and disappointing to see how diminished my creative capacity is, especially when I compare myself to my younger self when I was working in non-fiction ghostwriting and editing and how much I used to get through in a week or two because I was doing that full time. If I compare to when I was working on Powerless and writing from scratch, I do feel like that moved forward a lot more efficiently. However, I do feel like this is a more complex book. I do think that 2021 has been a difficult year for me, and not because anything has happened so much. It's more like the hangover of 2020 and just homesickness has been really starting to hit me. Work's also been challenging because the company's been growing so fast, which is good, but the support team hasn't grown fast enough to deal with all of the new clients. So we've all been having to deal with a lot of complaints and bad feedback, and I'm getting lots of messages to my personal LinkedIn and trying to chase down people's payments and stuff. So that's been a bit draining, especially when this is a time when you want to celebrate because the company's doing so well, but it seems like everyone's mad at you. So I was emotionally drained going into this week, and I think that's definitely reflected in how much I got done. So even though this was a good experiment, I don't think it's indicative of how much I would write if I was a full-time writer. I think if I was a full-time writer, one, there would have been time to transition from corporate startup work to working for myself again. So I wouldn't be taking time to recover. A lot of this week was, going to the gym and spending a really long time just having a good workout and going to the sauna, getting a massage, having long baths, watching YouTube, just taking the time to relax a little bit because I do have to go back to work tomorrow. So there wouldn't be that almost work-related jet lag when I was going into a regular week as a full-time writer because there wouldn't be anything to recover from. Ideally, it would just be my regular routine. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a big thumbs up, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and I would love it if you let me know in the comments whether you like these deep dives into my thought processes as I'm trying to unpick a book, and would you be interested in me doing a video with whether or not I decide to keep this character Aubrey in my book and how I got at that conclusion, because I could document the process, but only if you want me to, so please let me know. Other than that, I hope, you're having a great day, great week, and I will see you next time. Bye.